Hi, everyone. We're joined by former U.S. Energy Secretary Spencer Abraham to discuss the likely direction of Saudi Arabian policy throughout the rest of the year. We'll try and cover this topic from a few different angles. We're lucky to have Secretary Abraham with us for the second time in 2 weeks. Last Friday, we held a call to contextualize Iran's impact on the global energy industry with the lifting of nuclear-related sanctions, and we hope this short segment should supplement last week's call. Secretary Abraham, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks, Ben. Good to be with you.
Okay, well, I'll just jump right into the questions, and so we can kind of keep this nice and tight here. So, just first off, from a high-level standpoint, when you're looking at Saudi Arabia, for those that don't follow it that closely, what is the relevance of Saudi Arabian oil markets today, and then also why is the kingdom's policy path given so much attention by so many around the world?
Well, obviously, Saudi oil constitutes one of the world's largest suppliers and producers. It also produces some of the lowest cost production, so it's able to stay in the market in a way that higher cost alternatives can't. And for a long time, really, the Saudis have been the so-called swing supplier in the world marketplace. That is the one source of production that could be ramped up or brought back down as needed to meet either crises if they occur, or to help adjust or create some sort of price floor for situations in which the market's oversupplied. So those are the sort of historic reasons that the Saudis have played such a vital role. And it's carefully watched also because among the nations who make up the OPEC group, the Saudis are invariably the main decision makers. And so as they set policy, it tends to result in OPEC policy, which tends to be profoundly relevant to the oil marketplace.
And then I guess to follow up, you somewhat answered this with the low cost of production aspect that Saudi Arabia has going for it, but why has the Saudi decision to increase output, despite this drastic price decline we've now seen for a year and a half, been scrutinized by other OPEC members?
Well, it's been scrutinized really by almost everybody because it's such a departure from the traditional approach which the OPEC and Saudi policymaking has taken. Over a long period of time, really since OPEC came together, it has typically been the policy of OPEC to adjust production levels to address market supply situations. If the market was undersupplied and demand exceeded supply, prices started to go up. Over the years, OPEC has always reacted by increasing production, which usually meant Saudi production, to try to keep prices from becoming too volatile. Likewise, when prices were falling, the OPEC countries had addressed the oversupply situation by cutting back on production. Again, usually the Saudis taking the lead in order to maintain a certain threshold price for the world markets. What's changed, and this is a significant change both in economic and geopolitical terms, what happened in 2014 and has happened since is that in an already oversupplied market, the OPEC countries have continued to produce at high levels. Mm-hmm. And I believe the reasons for that are pretty extensive, and we probably should get into them, but the consequence has been that as opposed to restraining the fall in prices, it has in fact accelerated that fall. And so we've seen oil now dip down below $30 for a few days and hovering slightly above it the last few days, but at levels far below what it was just a little over a year ago.
And if you fast forward to today and you look at current events, what do you think how would you describe the state of Saudi and U.S. relations after the Iran nuclear deal, which they were in sharp opposition to?
Well, I think that the U.S. relationship with the Saudis has been influenced by that deal, and it was influenced even before that by other interactions. I think the Saudis were concerned and probably fairly disapproving of the U.S. passivity during the fall of Mubarak in Egypt. I think they were concerned because they thought to themselves, if someone who'd been as longstanding a friend of the U.S. as Mubarak was allowed to fall, and without the U.S. really expressing any sort of indication of support, what would happen if we were threatened? And so I think there was already, growing concern. But I think the Iran deal has exacerbated the situation because clearly, in historic terms, there have been few, if any, instances where America and the Saudis weren't on the same side of a policy debate over the last multiple decades. Now they are, and it's on a matter that, at least from the Saudi perspective, could be seen as an existential issue. And I think it probably is also of great concern to them that they find themselves, regarding the Iran deal, in the same position as the Israelis, something they aren't frequently found to be. And their thoughts are, I'm sure, if the United States would side with Iran, in effect, as opposed to its longstanding friends in Riyadh and in Tel Aviv, that that this suggests a very changed world perspective for them, and I'm sure that that is something that is going to be part of their calculus regarding geopolitics going forward.
Sure, and then kind of sticking on this topic, we're in an election year. How do you think that could this potentially be a large topic, or if not U.S.-Saudi relations, how will U.S. foreign energy policy trickle into the discussion into the election season, if at all?
Well, it's funny, even though the activities on the global level have a huge impact on domestic energy matters, when it comes to campaign time, the thing that voters pay most attention to is the price of energy.
Yeah.
And the current situation, where we find prices low, gasoline at lowest levels in a very long time, and home heating costs at relatively speaking low levels, natural gas prices low. That's, for most politicians, good news. At least certainly if you're an incumbent, it's a positive thing to be able to say that people have more discretionary dollars to spend.
Sure.
So I'm not sure that this global issue of energy will necessarily be a hot button in the election. What might be, though, is the issue of American security. And I think there, to the extent that people see a rising level of terrorism and of internal turmoil in the energy producing regions of the world, particularly in the North Africa, Middle Eastern area, there will be growing concern about whether America itself is in a position to address these threats. And so I think it might show up more in that context than it will in terms of our relationships with the countries involved.
Okay, well put, thanks. Now moving on here, to the last few days, you see oil's up. Oil's been up significantly in the last couple trading sessions. What do you make of the newsiness around a collaboration between Russia and OPEC over the last few days? Is it just a head fake, or is there anything to that?
Well, it's still our view that OPEC's policy of maintaining production levels will continue for a fairly long period of time. What I think, if somehow there could be a communal agreement between OPEC and other major producers that would include Russia, the United States, and so on a kind of collective reduction in production, maybe then you would see the OPEC willing to give some ground. But I don't think they want to do it unilaterally. And the reason for that is that if they start reducing production, they will be ceding market share to non-OPEC countries like Russia and the United States. I think in the United States, the OPEC is now able to see that American rig counts are down, capital expenditures by U.S. oil-producing companies are down, and so they now, I think, are probably comfortable that American production will start to move downward for a foreseeable period. Russia, being not a free market economy in the way the U.S.'s oil market works, is a little more of uncertainty to them. And I think the Russians don't always respond to the price signal, which is why I think there's hope that somehow they could come to a mutual agreement on production. But I think that's going to be hard to do. And again, we don't foresee OPEC taking its foot off the accelerator for a reasonable period going forward.
Sure, it's really it's really hard to see this kind of see that this kind of collaboration would work around the globe. I mean, I think within OPEC they have enough, they have a big enough issue trying to collaborate. So that's definitely a good point to make. And then just to end this segment here, I'll ask you the question that everyone likes to ask, and I'll let you answer it how you wish. What do you think is a bull case right now for oil?
Well, I think the fact is that as global production is affected by price, and as in the United States begins its pullback in terms of the number of rigs that are operating and the amount of capital expenditure on production and exploration, you're going to start to see the supply side of the equation fall. And I think we'll see ultimately, but not soon, but ultimately, actions to address this as well from other places in the world and from OPEC ultimately, but not as soon as some believe. So I think there's a long-term bullish outlook, but I don't think it's going to be a short-term change. I think that's going to take a little while to happen, and it will also require demand to be stronger. Part of the problem here is not just the supply side of the equation. It's that a very flat European economy, an Asian economy that's not as robust in terms of its growth as it was in previous years have contributed to this. And so I think you need to see a little bit of economic expansion all over the planet to also help build the demand level, and consequently the price will move with that. And I think that in a certain way, lower prices probably help stimulate a little bit of that growth.
Okay, well said. Secretary Abraham, thanks so much for joining us again. This has been a pleasure, and we look forward to catching you again soon.
Thanks, Ben. Good to be with you.